Hi there. How's it going? I'm your moderator for tonight. Um, hi, I'm Roddy. I am the Artist Services Coordinator for Fringe. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you for joining us tonight on a Thursday night over Zoom. Hope you're cozy. It was sprinkling a little bit over here, but starting to clear up, so that's always nice. Um, so like I said before, I'm the Artist Services Coordinator. I, like many of you, are also new to Fringe in that I am working with Fringe for the first year. I am now no longer a participant as I have been in the past. I am now a staff member, aiming to support all the artists in the questions you guys have and in sending out those newsletters and being there at office hours. So, hi, welcome. Nice to meet you. Uh, oh, yes, and a little bit more of an introduction for accessibility's sake, but also just have a base level how we'll introduce. My name is Roddy Viegas. My pronouns are he, him. And for a visual description, I am wearing a brown flannel. I'm a Latine man, and I'm wearing glasses. You may also be catching a squeaky toy because my dog is in the other room having the time of their life. And then, oh, yes, I would like to also kick us off with a little land acknowledgement that I've written here so I don't mess up, but also it's just good to have notes. Um, but yes, the Hollywood Fringe acknowledges that we are on the unceded lands of the Tongva, Quiche, Gabrielinos, and Gabrieleños people. Our statement serves as a practice to commit to furthering our connection to the indigenous communities past, present, and emerging. And then I want to thank the panelists that we have on today who are going to be answering all of your lovely questions, but also sharing that amazing information on how to start Fringe. Oh, this session will last roughly, we'll see how we go, about 2 hours. And I want to give you some upcoming notices since you're already here, some things you need to keep in mind. For example, the deadline to register for the print guide is April 15th, and that's coming up soon. So definitely check your website, check your Fringe page, and make sure you're tracking along. I'm sure you all are doing great. And then upcoming events. We've got the office hours next Wednesday will be hosted on March 10th from 7 to 10 at the Three Clubs, which is a 21 and up space, just a reminder. Then on Monday, March 15th from 7 to 8, we have web sessions number 2 discussing ticketing, ads, and guide proofs. That will also be on Zoom and streamed. And then Saturday, March 27th, towards the end of the month, we're in April. This is April. So everything I said that's about March, let's talk about that in April. So so the office hours next week, that's in April. The March 15th web session number 2 that talks about ticketing, also in April. Don't get confused like I just did. And then finally, April 27th from 3 to 5, we'll have a workshop about festival expectations because we're getting closer to it and it's going to be fantastic. That's actually going to be in person at the Zephyr, and we'll also be live streaming it. And so all of our town halls and workshops are available via the live stream and recorded. So you can always come back to it for those wonderful questions. I know that as I've been answering a lot of Fringe questions from artists that I'm answering those questions, but also linking to those workshops because they're so just like such incredible nuggets of information. That's it for me. Hopefully that wasn't too much of a run on, but we're gonna dive into meeting our panelists for the evening. So yes, panelist, do you want to take it away?
Uh, Hi. Do you want to go first, Aaron?
Sure, I can go unless you want to go before you have a cue come. You're good? Okay.
It's okay.
All right. I'm Erin Moore. My pronouns are she and her. I am with the Stagecraft venues, and for visual, I am a white female with brown curly hair, and I'm sitting in a very white hotel room in Kansas City. It's very boring in this room, but that's where I am. I have been producing stage managing and venue managing at Fringe since it started in 2010, maybe somewhere in there, since the first one. So I've been around a while.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nick. I am originally from Australia, if you're trying to pick the accent. For the accessibility, I'm a white male and got the big headphones on, sitting here in a booth where I'm also managing a tech situation that's happening at the same time. So if I have to just turn away to manage something, that's why, but I am fully committed to this discussion tonight. I am the technical director of the Zephyr Theatre, as well as the Stella Adler Academy of Acting and some other smaller spaces as well. I design all around town. I work 7 days a week, so I try and practice what I preach.
Incredible. And now I have a because we have some I have a little blurb that from the Asylum team because they were unable to make it, but they wanted to leave us with something and to let you guys know. So I've got this right here and I wrote it down. Welcome, Fringers. Theater Asylum will have specific and detailed information for our shows regarding tech after booking. In addition, we host a special tech walkthrough weeks prior to your tech to go through the space with your tech operator. We're really excited about all the wonderful shows, and we're already hearing about lots of fun things coming this year. And I think that that kind of leads me into something that I'll kind of just say into the space is that Fringe hosts many venues operating on different tools, different techniques, different styles. So as we'll be talking about these things from Nick and Aaron and hearing from them, keep in mind too that all the different venues operate differently, and it's prudent that we all start those conversations if you know you want something particular to have those conversations earlier rather than later, but also seeing what your space has as far as tech and all that jazz. But I think I can just dive into maybe throwing some questions out there for you, Aaron and Nick. How's that sound?
Let's do it.
Let's do
Okay,
it.
cool. Amazing. And then feel let us know, in the chat and send your questions because we'll be dropping those into, and then we'll also have that Q&A section. So if I don't get anything you're wanting to know, for sure we'll like put those in the chat and we'll get those going. I think Lois has also helped me out there, sending them my way. But question number one, on this separate piece of paper, what should the mindset be when thinking about tech and Fringe? Because we're all coming into this at different levels. What should we know? What should that mindset be when coming into tech, coming into Fringe in regards to all those technical elements? Like, what do you guys think? Oh, should I pick someone to go first, or
No,
how,
no, it's
how do
okay.
I do
I
this?
mean, I know I have a lot of thoughts about this.
Sure.
In general, the way to think about it, I believe, should always be to start simple and then work up, unless conceptually your show is extremely tech heavy presentation. Starting simple and then working up is as a general rule, I think a good thing across the board because every tech situation at each theater is different. I personally tell my people at the Zephyr, think the best case scenario, and then if we can't do it, we'll go down. But that's because of the way we have the theater set up, and we use certain equipment which we're very good at using. It's not the case in every venue. Some venues don't even have a technical person there for you, so it is very much venue specific, and you should be contacting the venue manager about what the technical setup is to make sure. But from there, probably starting simple is best, but definitely having an idea of what you want technically in your show, lighting wise, sound wise. Video is always very complicated, but a lot of people use video. But lighting wise specifically, I want for this scene, I isolated it on stage right with a little bit of red. Just those types of elements, having an idea of what you want going in, because most stage managers are not lighting designers. You have to be the designer of your show going into it, and then we're going to help you in that process. Aaron?
Yeah, I would second that of start with the basics. What are your must-haves? And then think about what are your nice-to-haves? What would be the wow factor that you would love to see in your show? And chat with your venue about what level we can get to in various parts. And plan ahead. As Nick said, the more prepared you are when you come into tech, the smoother that tech's going to be. So think about blocking and lights and sound cues so that when we get to tech, you can tell us, I want lights on stage left at this point. Because the worst thing that can happen is for you to come in and say, I don't know when I want lights to come on. And then we have to take time to figure that out, and we can do that, but we want to maximize your time. So the more you're thinking about that ahead of time, the better it's going to be.
Incredible. And Aaron and Nick, I might chime in a little bit and say some things here, but like if anything you find that conflicts or you want to change, like feel free to hop in. Again, we're just all having a casual conversation. But I would also say that for Fringe, it's you're coming in, and for many of us where we're producing work, for the first time, or we're producing new work for the first time that hasn't been on its feet before. So just from my experience last year, it's like, okay, we have our Fringe production, and we want to, expose this new work out into the world. We want to receive that feedback. We want to get that experience. And then there's always the possibility of moving beyond Fringe and where that piece will go next. And so it's, yes, we'll have our dream list of what we want and what we can accomplish. But when things go to the side, they're not gone forever. It's those future shows that Fringe has provided that you'll live on a new life with that show. So that's another way of also thinking about that. Anything that gets isn't just able to be accomplished for whatever reason, because a million things happen in tech. Think about that for the next time, or those notes that you'll learn and experience. Um, so yeah, um, I guess we'll jump into that next question. And I think this one we can break down a little bit because it's a bit of it's a big one. So in broad strokes, what do I, like as an artist, need to prepare ahead of time for my scheduled tech? Now, I think I'd like to break this down. Maybe it'd be a little easier if we do it about like in lights, in sound, and scenic. I think those are gonna be, because it's different from like, oh, I'm going into a 990 theater during a non-fringe space or non-fringe year. We gotta kind of adjust our mindset. So let's tackle it on what do I need to prepare ahead of time when I schedule tech in regards to sound, let's say.
Yeah, I can start. So a few things. One, think about the sounds you want, and that includes your pre-show, curtain call, post-show, set changes, anything in between, and those sound cues, doorbells, telephones, whatever that is. And then remember that we most of the time don't pull things off of Spotify or Apple Music or anything like that. So we need an actual file that needs to be delivered. And your venue will tell you how they want it delivered. If it's thumb drive, Dropbox, whatever it is, your venue will tell you the file format they need and what it is. But please don't come in and say, here's my Spotify playlist, because I'm going to send you out to the lobby to start buying sound cues. So come organized and label your files so that we know what they are. Doorbell, page 5, right? Exit music, page 14. That helps us out a lot. Nick, I'll let you jump in too.
Well, yeah, and once you have those files, it's organizing them in a folder on your computer in order. So like audio A01, A02, not just 1, 2, 3, 4, because even that gets out of order on some computers. So having everything in order, set to go. Ideally, we're going to have a big discussion about QLab later on, but ideally, you have your QLab already made ahead of time, whether that's you that knows how to do QLab or someone like us that is experts in programming and designing QLab, having that ahead of time before your show, because that is one of the only elements that you can have prepared and ready to go before you get in the theater. And if you have to spend time designing the QLab in the theater, you're wasting valuable time that you should be using for your lighting and your blocking and other scenic elements. So it's the best use of your time to get your QLab set up ahead of time, or get at least your sound files and your video files set up ahead of time. It's the same thing for video if you're using QLab. If you're not using QLab, it gets more complicated with what piece of software you use, but in general, hopefully you're using QLab. But just having it all organized in a folder is the absolute critical thing to have ahead of time.
Brilliant. And yes, we will be getting into like a bigger discussion about QLab, but more importantly about building that like a vocabulary that the artist can use when talking to tech about like, oh, here's what I'm looking for, here's what I want, or just kind of understanding that base level so that we're all kind of on the same page when we enter our tech. And because again, like yes, Fringe is a learning experience, but as much as we can hop on before the day of tech to have that tool set, the better we'll be. So incredible. Thank you both. Let's talk about what do we need to prepare ahead of time for tech? Sorry, the whole thing's about tech. About lights.
Well, I think we already discussed it a little bit. It's just
Hmm.
having an idea, like you have to be the designer of your show, unless you've had discussions with your stage manager about their design ability. As I said, some stage managers are designers, most of them probably are not, and they're just people that run the shows. And they will do a little bit of design in terms of like they have an idea, but you really need to know exactly what you want, and or you should need to have a strong idea about what you want. And that might change, and that's okay. But at least having an idea of like, even I ask people sometimes, what type of feeling do you want in this scene? Just to try and get an answer out of them so I kind of know the direction they need to go. These are questions you should ask yourself. Like, what do I want to convey in this scene on the stage? How do I want it to feel to the audience? And then you can start writing your answers down, even if you don't know exactly the technical lighting language that we use. Just having an idea each scene, I want it to feel romantic. I want this scene to feel like this scene's at sea, so it needs to feel like it's at the sea. Most stage managers should be able to translate that for you. The more specific you can get, the better off you are.
Yeah, I'll echo that. Definitely know what your feelings you want. If you think you need, we had someone who wanted a 30-minute sunset one year. So, just thinking about that, it happened over the course of the show. It was beautiful. But knowing things like that coming into it. Stagecrafts venues, we have lighting designers that we can recommend. They come at fees, they charge their own rates, but we do have lighting designers. So reach out to your venues as well. They may have people that they recommend if their stage managers aren't operating as lighting designers as well. So check with your venues. And I would also say check with your venues if you haven't already on their lighting capabilities. Some venues have more color lights available than others. Some just do warm, cool. Stagecrafts, we have LEDs so we can do colors, things like that. So just make sure as you're thinking about something, don't get your heart set on purple if your venue doesn't have a purple available, right?
Yeah, it is so like nearly every single answer we're going to give tonight is you need to check with your venue
Yeah.
because so much of it is venue dependent. Like we use a computer-based lighting system for Fringe at the Zephyr, and we can do like really crazy chases. We can do them really quickly, but it's very difficult for other venues to do. Some venues use a manual lighting board where you can't record cues. So it's so important to just have an idea about what the venue can do, and then you can start to put your plan in place.
Brilliant. Um, yeah, because absolutely, and I'm just it's very exciting because we're kind of having this. For those of you coming in late, hi, I'm Roddy. I was a participant last year, and now I'm on staff this year, and so much of this information is such a great reminder of how each venue works differently. And I'm just remembering my experience with lighting and with sound, and how we kind of worked through that. The other one, which our show did have a lot of, is the scenic elements. Now we'll kind of get a little bit more of like, oh, every venue is different. Absolutely, check in with them. So, well, one, it's I wanted to throw it to you, Aaron and Nick, about scenic and what should the I'll kind of adjust this one, but what should the mindset in regards to scenic be when bringing a show to Fringe? Because I know we have a wide variety of people wanting to bring lots of amazing things, but we got to keep that in mind of the 15-minute load in, load out.
Aaron, do you want to take the lead on this one?
Yeah, sure. So a few things. One, know what you absolutely need and what you can cheat. As Reddy said, this may be the first production, but it might not be the last. So do you really need that queen bed on stage, or can we fake it with some cubes, right? Things like that. Check with your venues on storage. Not every venue has storage for, say, a mattress, right? So you may have to get creative. Plan your load in and your load out. When we produce theater, we choreograph it like a dance. So our cast, our crew knows who's going in first, where they're going. They're going left, the next person's going right. So choreograph it and practice it. And the third thing I'll say, because we're shared venues, so there may be extra props and things around, don't take other people's props, scenes, anything like that. if you see me or Greg Crafts at office hours, ask us about the story of the 3 chairs and the expensive bar tab because we stole a chair from a show with 3 chairs.
Oh.
So many years ago. But that's the other thing. Just don't borrow props from other shows, even if they're just sitting there.
Unless you've already discussed it with them.
Yes.
Some people, apologies if you hear that in the background. I'm still taking an event right now. Yeah, so I don't know if I have too much more to add. It's really about just coordinating with the venue. If there's an orientation day, meeting some of the other, I always try and foster an environment like everyone plays together, we work together. Some people give time back to the stage in terms of their end time, and that helps everybody, but don't ever expect it. You know, your load in, especially if you only have 15 minutes, you know, your load in, load out is very important that you're on time, because if the theater starts running behind time on a busy day, you'll be in trouble.
Yeah, I will. I'll just second that. Because we have it's one venue will have multiple shows running in a day, and that schedule is super helpful to stay on top of. And again, it is the 15-minute load in, load out, but that 15 minutes is also before and after your show is also when your audience is entering your show, when they're exiting your show. Definitely account for that. And so, if you have spaces with lobbies or on the streets, like just tell everyone like, oh my God, like thank you so much for coming. If you want to catch up, like catch me in the lobby, catch me at X, Y, and Z, catch me, there will be opportunities to talk with everyone, but staying on top of that load in, load out. Because we're a community developing so much theater at the same time that we don't want to rob time from other shows that have a set time to come in. And I think both what Aaron and Nick were saying about it's like a dance, having that coordination going into load in, like because it's not impossible to have multiple props. It will be harder, absolutely. So keep that in mind. But also, let's say you're a cast of 12 people, you have those extra set of hands, you can give those tasks, like take time out of rehearsal when you're doing that to come in with a game plan. Even like for your tech, if you're coming in with elements, like make sure you have that learned experience in your body. Like take tech to also be that information of like, okay, if I need to bring in props, how is that going to be brought in? And then on the flip side, if you're say like a solo show or you have a smaller cast, it's well like, okay, how do I navigate bringing in all my stuff? How do I transport it? I know for the last year's show, wheels, everything on wheels was a lifesaver for me, but also it was a fully a moment of checking in with my venue and knowing like, well, can I roll things into the space? Not every space has that option available to us in different venues. It's about that, like you guys have both been saying, that communication, if nothing else from this panel, communication is key. Let's just make that clear. It's super important. And we're right now in April, as I've just learned. Uh So you've got, have those early conversations instead of having those rushed, panicked moments where you're sending emails and, take that time and really register what you're expecting in light, sound, and scenic, and that will just help you so much. It'll help us all so much. But yeah, thank you. Oh, yes, go for it.
I think with props as well, one thing we tell all of our participants is whatever you have, first of all, make sure it's not something that you can't be without just in case something happens to it. But also it goes in a tub with your show name on it with a lid. So that we know what belongs to who. So if you can buy those tubs at Costco for real cheap, just make sure you get a tub, put your name on it with your show's props, and hopefully everything that you have can fit in that tub.
Absolutely. Actually, Nick, you're reminding me because I completely forgot about one of the four or one of the multiple design factors is props. And something else that I want to voice that I know other venues work differently, but it's also just good practice to check in with. You're like, oh, I have a sword in my show, and is it a foam sword? Is it a wooden sword? Like these weapons that we may have in our shows. There's always best practices of what to do when we have those. Um, and again, I'll just voice again, it's that level of like having that dialogue with your venue, sending that email and being like, hey, I have X, Y, and Z prop, and I want to check in that that's okay. And if there is an issue with it, how do we work to best accomplish what I'm going for? but not necessarily having to bring in the real thing, because it's theater of the mind, it's imagination. We can stretch belief. We're in theater, there's a lot of play that can be happening. And that's honestly where a lot of the creative choices can happen. Um, so yes, wonderful. Oh, Aaron, did you want to say anything on the part of props or anything really, anything that I've talked about so far?
Yeah, just on that load in, whether you're bringing in furniture or
Oh,
props.
yes.
Um, Also just check with your venue on their stage manager. At Stagecrafts, our stage managers don't help with load in and load out because they are doing their lights and sound and projection checks for you for the next show, and they need that time to make sure that the shows are running. So unlike a normal show where you're in the theater for 4 weeks or whatever it is, and the stage manager is helping you with the setup and the cleanup and all of that, just check with your venues on that because each venue may have different expectations. But I know in stagecraft venues, our stage managers are so focused on getting that tech set up for your show or for the next show that they don't have time to help with that stuff.
Incredible. Yeah, because that's also another thing of like knowing the capacity. Everyone's doing a million different things at once. So if you can have those conversations, be like, oh, actually, yes, I can, or it's like, no, I have to get ready the next show, or that next step. So fantastic. Thank you so much, Aaron, because yeah, it's important to voice that. And I think now talking about getting ready for tech, I want to now talk about discussions of reserving the tech if artists haven't reserved their tech time yet. I want to put out that every show is different in what they'll need for their tech per se. But on average, and this is more so talking about Aaron and Nick, your experiences on fringe shows, um, how much time is commonly discussed, and maybe your venues have recommended times, or how that breaks down. But how much time would you say is needed or suggested for a fringe show?
So I can start for stagecraft venues. Tech is booked as part of your package. So those that are in stagecrafts, you are already reserved for your tech. But our rule of thumb is 3 times your show length. So if you're an hour-long show, you'll get 3 hours. If you're a 2-hour show, you get 6 hours. And that's what we use. You can always work with Jen, who's on the call today, to book more time if you feel like you need it, and we can get you in for additional time. But that's already included in your package at Stagecrafts.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Nick, do you want to? Yeah, go for
Well, yeah, it's a difficult thing. It is very much show dependent.
it. Hmm.
I work with a lot of we have a lot of solo shows at the Zephyr, and they come in, and they're fairly tech heavy, so we barely get through just getting the programming done in their 3-hour window, and then we normally do a dress run, and then maybe like another preview performance. So, but the artist is always paying for the space and the stage manager for that. But even when like I've worked comedy festivals back in Australia, the Melbourne Comedy Festival, and we spent the whole 3 hours of their tech time for a stand-up show, just working on a couple things just to make the show really great. So it can depend. Some stand-ups come in 30 minutes done, no problem. It is very much show dependent. If you have a play that is 60 minutes long, you will need at least 3 hours. Unless it's unless it's a lights up, lights down type of thing. So solo shows normally have more technical elements, and those are at least 3 to 4 hours. The more organized you are going ahead of going into the theater, the quicker your tech is going to go. Having all of these things thought out, like where people are going to stand, who's going to move this, getting all of that planned ahead of time will save you time and money in the long run. That is the most important lesson from tonight, is just having an idea of what you want and getting it prepared ahead of time. Getting it organized will save you so much heartache in the long run, because there's nothing worse than just running out of time at the end of a tech. You don't get another chance. We haven't finished the show. We're just going to have to figure it out on the first show. I've done that so many times. We all hate it. No one wants to be in that position, especially because we care a lot about your shows and we want them to go well. Nobody wants your show to go well more than your stage manager does.
Yeah,
Oh, lovely.
I will echo that just with we always set the expectation, don't plan that you're going to get a full run through after tech at your tech. So if we get there, that's amazing and gold stars, everybody involved. But usually tech is, like Nick said, we're getting in those cues right into that last second. We have a dress rehearsal as well, so that's where we put it all together and do the run. And our dress rehearsals, we add an extra hour on at the end so we can go back and fix anything. So that dress rehearsal is kind of like tech 2.0, and then preview, of course. So, but just setting that expectation, don't plan to do a full run, no stop run of your show at tech. We're going to be cue to cue programming, all of that good stuff.
Amazing. And I wanted to share a cautionary tale of my lived experience of doing a tech and talking. And the reason why I wrote this question, because you know, as much unnecessary stress as you can avoid going into this, and with preparedness, I don't see why you wouldn't want to do that, because nobody likes excess stress. It's not great, especially as June will be such a fun time. You don't want to be worrying about the things that you really don't need to. But I'll share my experience in this cautionary tale on like the one thing I was like, oh, if I was to do Fringe again, if I did that show again, how would I change things? And I was asked this question in January when we were on a panel discussing the creative side of it all. But what I'll say is we had a 7-person show. It was an hour long, and we you know, with our venue we were like, oh, we'll have 2 hours, and the day comes and you're like, oh, 2 hours is not enough time. If for my case in my show, I also would just advocate for more. Like I think, Aaron, you were saying it's 3 times the length. I think that would have been genius. And just like, so sometimes you come in and you just don't have that experience or that mindset, and that's the one thing I'd be like, oh God, I remember freaking out in tech, being like, it's gonna be fine, we're gonna do it, it's great, and it was fine. But you know, having that, holding that like anxiety or that stress is not, you don't need to do that if you can manage to add that additional hour to get that more time that you need, that you know what your show's gonna take. So I just want to voice that, and also just make a point of that, to be like, you'll need tech time. Don't think that it just happens on a one and done. It's like, give yourself that ample time that you need, and discussing it with your venue spaces, or your venues. I also, before jumping into the next question, Lois, who's also here, just helping on the back end of things, has let me know that Tegan is here from the, let's see if I, oh God, I don't know why my text is so small, the GGC Theater. And Tegan, there, okay. Does your mic work? Is that?
Yeah, I should. I just
Oh,
hi
okay,
everybody.
incredible.
Yeah. No, I came in and I was, because this is our first year hosting Fringe, I was mostly just going to listen in at the Gloria Gifford Conservatory, but I love what everybody is saying, because it really is. I mean, we are in a communication industry. That is what we're doing when we put on a production. We are trying to communicate things to our audience. Communication with your tech is the same thing. So yeah, I love what everybody's been saying. That is, the more organized you as a director or a production are, the easier it is to then set things up, because we don't know your show. So until you tell us and you show us. Somebody in the comments said something about doing a paper tech. I love that idea. Absolutely, that is helpful, walking us through what we need to see, and checking with your venue about what we have available, because yeah, we're all different. Yeah, so hi everybody.
Incredible. So awesome. Thank you for joining us, Tegan. I just want to catch you up to speed a little bit. Let's do well, you mean we've already introduced you somewhat, but let's introduce your pronouns, a visual description for the sake of accessibility, and then we'll just keep on our merry way with these questions.
Oh, awesome. I love that. I'm Tegan Wilson. I am the lead tech at the Gloria Gifford Conservatory. I go by she, her. I am a female, long red hair, though it's up in a bun at the moment. Wearing a gray sweater. I've not had to do that part before, so I love that. It's exciting.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for doing it. You killed it. I could see it. It was incredible. And I'll just keep going on along. And Tegan, if there's anything that we've covered in the previous questions that you want to return to, because we're kind of playing it loose and casual with these questions, like feel free to hop back in, as I also just continue rolling out some of these other questions here. But I actually wanted to, before I jump into the next question and talking about paper tech, I know that for different people it works differently, but for our techs here, what is your experience with, and how much would you recommend an annotated script that has like cues and lights? Is that something that you prefer to have, or is there a different method that maybe your venues operate with? I just wanted to put that out there, start that loose conversation, and we'll get into it more. So yeah.
I will say at stagecraft venues, blank scripts only. We will not accept scripts that have any writing in them.
Amazing. Yeah, oh
Nick,
yeah,
you're
go
on
for it,
mute.
go for it.
I
Oh,
wasn't sure what the protocol was for how to jump in. I think,
you're all good.
yeah, this, if you are going to give us a script, make sure it's clean. Like stagecraft, they just said nothing in it. If it is written in that there is a cue and that's all that's said, I know at the GGC that's probably fine by us, but don't give us your copy of the script that has all of your blocking notes, all of your acting notes, all of it. We can't. That's a lot of visual clutter for us when we need to be able to see what is the line that is our cue. And that's part of what we'll go through with tech is you'll be doing those moments so we can get that cue to cue. What are we watching for? That is the cue. Does that timing work for you? Okay, good. Making sure and again, communication.
Brilliant. Nick, I know you were muted for a second. If you want to hop into that one, you're free to do so. Oh, or if you're frozen, you'll hop back in with us. Either one works. Well, then that's another thing I want to talk about with like knowing when cues are kind of being taken. And so it's like, remind me of the refresher, but like we'll have visual if a lighting or any other cue is taken off of a visual. There's if it's a line-based cue. In your experiences, are there any other ways of taking a cue that we'll kind of discuss, or what like how that building that language for having the artist communicate to their technicians and their venues about when they want things to come in.
So we have a template that's available in our producer's guide that we send out, and it gives you a chance to write in page 4, doorbell, when Julia says Coke, right? So then we know that that's what it is. We'll take cues off of lines as long as your actors say them. We'll take them off of visuals, music. If it's a musical, we can do it that way too.
So from my end, can you hear me? I think my connection is not good. We just went on a break. I think everyone's using the internet now. So it's tricky. In general, you should always check with your stage manager. You basically ask them directly what they would want. Me personally, I'm happy for you to write things in pencil in the script on the left-hand side. Because that's where all my cues are all going to go on the right-hand side. And what you think is a cue is maybe not necessarily what is going to end up being the thing. Jessica Lynn Johnson's people, the solo show people, they have a format, they have a template, and they have all of their cues in the script, and it is very helpful during tech, because that is basically the design of the show, and you know exactly what they want because it's written in the script. When it comes to running the show, then you write your own cues in. So everyone does it differently. In general, you should ask your stage manager. I'm okay for stuff, but please, if you send people a script, make sure you've written it in pencil so that we can get rid of it if we need to.
Brilliant. And yeah, there's nothing an eraser can't solve when it's all done in pencil. So amazing. Okay, and now, okay, so then I've got this next question for you guys about, well, and I think we've been covering this and it's kind of been breaking it down this whole time. So it's kind of like, oh, what else do we want to let artists know about? Which is, what is, in your experiences, the best advice you would want first-time fringers to know about going into tech, which we've been kind of talking about. So if it's maybe it's something we've covered previously to hammer home, or if it's like, oh, we didn't get to say this part about the tech process. First-time fringers, but also just like, what do you want the artists to know going into tech? Like, what's that advice you'd like to give out to them? Yeah, go for
I
it. Go
have
for it.
kind of a random one. Make sure to eat and hydrate. I know that doesn't sound like it's tied to tech, but it is going to be stressful. You are at the end, everything's coming together. There's going to be pieces that are missing. And if you haven't taken care of yourself, you're not going to be able to function and communicate, and you're going to get even more stressed. So it's just one of those kind of side things to take care of also.
I will add, check your tech time is not your time to rehearse your show, rerun that scene because they didn't get the right beats, things like that. You can do that later after tech. Be organized, as we said before. Be kind to your stage manager and venue staff. A lot of them have 16, 18 shows that they're working on, so they do need to eat and go to the bathroom every few hours. So when they say, I need 3 minutes, please respect that. And no, it will come together. It will.
I think the most important thing is hope. Pretty much every venue, or at least I hope every venue, wants you to succeed. We are here to help you put on the best show that you can. So if you have questions, you should reach out to us. If you don't know what you're doing, you should reach out to us. We will point you in the right direction. We will help you as much as we can within the scope. Don't there are some people that maybe ask questions that could maybe figure it out on their own. So be thoughtful with the amount of questions that you ask, but really reach out to your venues. We are your resource. There is a reason that you book with us, and we want to elevate you as much as possible.
Brilliant. And yeah, thank you all for that, because it's, yeah, well, especially the eating and making sure you're hydrated. Like, there have been many times where I'm on the go and I'm doing a bunch of stuff and I have to like take a break and be like, wait a minute, did I eat lunch today? And it's now 8. I should go do that. I should make sure that that's okay, because sometimes we'll just get wrapped up so much, especially on the creative side as well. There's so much going on that you just gotta take a second, take care of yourself, and then re-enter the space. But also, Aaron, what you were saying about, and I think this kind of leads me to my next question about like, err on the side of caution of don't turn that tech to a rehearsal, like you were saying, which is great. Um, which kind of leads me into this next one. It's, what is something that you want to caution artists in your experience? We don't have to name names or any productions, but like, what are the common pitfalls that people find themselves under? I know that I have a couple stories to share about that I've like found myself at tech being like, oh no, I can't, like, tech time is precious. I shouldn't be doing X, Y, and Z, which I'll talk about in a second. But I want to know, like, in your experiences, what are the common ruts in tech that artists can find themselves in, or just like making the most of that tech time? So I'll throw it to you guys.
People coming in being too ambitious with what they want, and then all of a sudden things get stripped down, things get stripped down, things get stripped down. It happens all the time, and it's fine to be ambitious, but you also have to be prepared. And like, people come with like crazy ideas about using wireless equipment, and they haven't checked with us, and like using webcams and all types of, like, I had people that wanted to use cameras, like, and then get a live feed for the projector, but we hadn't really sorted it out. They kind of throw it at you at the last second. It's like, this isn't going to work. It's not going to happen, guys. You're way too ambitious, and you need to communicate ahead of time. We need to know what's happening. Give me one moment. I need to hit a cue.
All good.
I would also say a few things. One, again, be prepared and watch noise levels. Actors, they're really excited when they come in. The longer or the louder people are talking, the harder it is for your stage managers, your designers to hear you. Because a lot of times you're in a different spot in the theater than they are. So when the cast gets loud, we spend a lot of time going, what? So take the noise outside when you can, or keep it down. Also, a rule of thumb we tell our producers, plan for 5 minutes per cue. So if you're coming to us and you're like, I have 400 light cues, multiply that by 5, and that's the number of minutes that we need to plan just for lights. And then think about your sound. And if you have 200 sound cues, multiply that by 5, right? Some of them are going to be easy because they're copy paste, blackout, come back up. but others of them are going to take 10, 15, 20 minutes if we're building in chase scenes or thunderstorms, things like that. So just kind of think about the timing there of your cues, and maybe you can cut some out.
Incredible. And then Tegan, if you want to hop in on this one, but please feel free to do so.
I was actually just trying to text Lois, because I was wondering, can the people watching the live stream or the recording of this, can they see the comments? Because Jen has said a couple great things in there that is, I want to just make sure that those are being seen or heard, because like she just sent in with questions. If you have a bunch of questions, email them to your venue, email them to your stage manager, so we can give you no, there's no way that you can hang a disco ball from the ceiling and have it fly down and start doing massive circles. No, we cannot do that. So you can have some of those questions answered in advance. You've come in and chosen your venue, so you should have an idea of what each venue is maybe capable of. But again, if you want something big, check, because also, can you get that teched in time? How imperative is that to telling the story? Sometimes, yes, a tech thing is going to make a moment, and know which ones those are. But also, like, a doorbell has to happen. But does the, background clapping have to happen? Maybe not. I don't know. I'm pulling things out of thin air. I have no idea what you guys are going to need. But as from other productions that weren't Fringe, that's where I'm thinking about, know what tone you need, and kind of leading to that. I feel like I might have gotten off track on the question, but I just wanted to make
you're
sure
all
that,
good.
okay, that information was fed in. So
Yeah. In fact, let me, because I was taking a second to check back our chat. And I actually want to voice something else that Jen, you mentioned here, from a venue manager perspective, that we were talking earlier about sets and scenic and props. And I think this would be specific to Jen and the stagecrafts team. Feel free to keep chatting. I'll just voice those as well, Jen. But we've got you mentioned also, if you need something specific. Oh, you're here. Oh my God, wait a minute.
Yeah, no, I'm
Hi,
here.
Jen.
I'm
Oh,
here.
here too.
And Nick's here too. And Nick's back.
Hi.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was gonna. You're here. I don't need a. It's great. Welcome.
I've been a lurker. Yeah, if you I always tell all of our producers, if you need something specific, let me know. I might say no, but I always try to work it out as best as possible. So like for instance, last year at the Magnani, 90% of the shows there needed a table and chairs. Well, we didn't have a table and chairs, but I went out and got one. And I just had a dining room set backstage and was like, here you go, use it. One of my superpowers is funding an entire set or an entire lobby or a bunch of furniture on no money. So I can generally find what you need. If you need something crazy specific, a couple years ago at Studio Stage, we had someone who needed a big laundry cart, like the giant ones that they use at like laundry facilities. Well, that's not something I have, but we were able to store that for them. So check with your venue about storage as well. Some will say absolutely no storage. I've got some venues this year that have absolutely no storage, and I have others that we have some storage. So just ask. But again, if you can do that in writing to your venue manager before your tech, do it. Just put it in writing, send them an email. You can ask whatever questions you want. We all want you guys to succeed. And so we will all try our best to figure out how to make it as easy for you as possible.
Incredible.
I want to highlight what Lois just said in the chat, that if
Yes,
we say
yeah.
no about anything, it's for a reason. We've done this a lot. And so it might seem like it's a dumb rule or a stupid rule. Why do we have to line up on the left and not the right? Or why do we have to go in the back and out the front? It's because we've done this a lot and we know what works best in our venues and with audiences and casts. And we're trying to keep everybody happy and everything moving, and your show's good and their show's good. So if we say no, we'll try and explain the why, but just know it's not just because we like saying no. it's because there's a reason behind it. So thank you, Lois, for that.
Incredible. Okay, and then I think because I want to get to questions from people that are online right now and from YouTube, and I know Lois is checking in with me on that one as well. But before we get into that, because I'm just keeping a time check and being aware of everyone's time as we're moving forward. I think what Nick, we were all talking earlier actually about this, about having that discussion on QLab. And I think what might best serve us here, checking with time, is that being aware of a vocabulary, like a base vocabulary that we want the artist to know about. So when you go into tech, oh, good. Oh, no, no worries, no worries. Um, Knowing what that discussion is. For example, like, oh, I just, because most people are coming in producing and have a different range of experiences. So it's like, okay, a blackout versus a blue out, or a fade in, a fade out. Like, what are those terms that you are like, oh, this gets commonly said at a tech and is a base language? Just so we start building that. And then Nick, can you hear me now? Brilliant. Okay. So yeah, just talking about a base language for what we want people to come into to tech knowing, making sure everyone can kind of speak the lingo so that we kind of know what's going on. For example, a blackout, a blue out, a fade in, fade out. What are some other terms that you've experienced that you I think are vital to establishing that base communication?
Um, I, I'll go first. Yeah, it's do you want a zero count? Like how fast do you want something? Do you want a snap blackout? Just things, just things like that. Do you want me to fade this? You want me to fade this track in? Does it need to start from a certain point? Um, People just say, "Hey, can you just fade it in?" It's like, okay, how long a fade do you want? How fast do you want it to, what type of, there's so many answers to all of those questions. You really need to, the main point is you need to be specific about what you want. And we will help you in that journey if you don't give us the answer that we want. But as specific as possible is the best use of everyone's time.
Incredible. Aaron, Tegan, if you guys want to add on top of that, if not, I have some things about that, but take it away if you do.
No, I'll just echo as specific as possible. And as Jen mentioned, a paper tech is fantastic for things like that. So if you're not sure, ask your stage manager if you can book them. Book them, so paying them extra to meet with you for their time, but to talk through some of that stuff, because they will be able to help you. They'll be able to ask you some of those questions that maybe you're not quite thinking about yet, but about like, okay, in this scene change, do you want the music to start loud? Do you want it to fade up? Is it going to come down at the end? Is it a hard stop? They'll be able to ask you those questions, and doing a paper tech with them is the best time to kind of talk through your script with them, and they'll help you kind of figure out some of those things. So highly recommend that if your stage managers are open to it.
Amazing. And then so as well as this little this panel, this conversation going to YouTube after it's after we wrap. There's also going to be a blog post that kind of discusses about teching the show in broad strokes, because every venue is different. But like I think that it'll be really helpful. I've been writing down some of the terms we're throwing out there to kind of also include that into that blog post. Like Nikki, you were saying a zero count, and then like breaking down that language, saying, oh, what does that mean? That'll be on there for later future viewing. Probably around the time that this concludes, it'll be uploaded onto the Fringe site. Because yeah, getting on top of that would be amazing. So I don't know why I'm saying getting on, like I'm speaking to someone. I'm the one that's writing the blog post. I'll get that out. There's no third person here. It's just me and doing the blog post for that specific blog post. I don't know why I'm like, oh, someone else will do it. I'm like, no, I'm that someone else. It'll be great.
We know that you probably don't know the lingo, and that's okay. Some people are better at translating tech than other people, but the more specific you are about what you want, then we will be able to find a way to communicate together and figure it out. I think that's the most important thing. There's no
Amazing.
expectations that everyone is like a super technical person. You shouldn't be. You're the performer or the producer or whatever your role is in the show. You don't need to be the technical person, but you just need to be specific about what you want.
Awesome. Yeah, and again, I think that, like I mentioned before, but that the biggest takeaway here we're seeing is that strong level of communication and not waiting till the last minute to send those emails, and just like making sure we're on top of things because we've been seeing there's a lot of early birds coming to Fringe, and that's amazing. And so it's like let's just keep that energy going for the rest of the festival. Um, so that's amazing. Now I wanted to make some time right now, because also noting the time of our guests here. If we have questions from the YouTube or if we have questions here from the audience, I suppose. What does it go? The audience, everyone in this room, you got questions? I don't know. Audience seems a little strange. We're all just here.
And Dave, you have a
And you
question
could.
in the audience, feel free to just raise your hand or unmute yourself. It's casual, and I'll pin you so you can join the panelists in the center of the room here.
Hi, I just want to jump in with something. My name's Joe. The name of my show is Bulger Boys. It's a solo show. I was wondering how long typical playlists are for house music in the beginning, before the show starts.
I think that's a great question. I would always recommend people to put at least 15 to 20 minutes. You probably will only need 5 of it. But the reality is you're going to, especially for a solo artist like yourself, you'll probably end up doing your show at other venues. So there's no need to have to redo that work. You may as well just do it up front because you'll probably need that much music when you go and do a different festival that gives you a little bit more time, or if you go and do a single performance with your show. So you should have between, if it was like a one night only event, you'd have between 15 and 30 minutes of music. But for Fringe, between 15 and 20, and you probably only use a couple tracks. But it depends on the schedule of the venue and when they can get your audience in. We always try and get people in early, but sometimes that doesn't work, and there's only one track that gets to play before it's lights up.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Minimum 15, as Nick said. And then if you have a specific song that you want to play right before the show starts, keep that separate because your stage manager that will kind of be Q1 essentially. So I would not put that in your pre-show playlist. My husband has a show that he's bringing back to Fringe, and he has a show that he starts with. We play it for about 30 seconds with the audience still talking and everything. So that is separate from his pre-show. So I cue that when I know we're ready to go. So if you've got a song that you're like, I have to hear this right before I go on stage, keep that separate.
And are there copyright issues in using music by people who have their music copyrighted?
You just had to ask, didn't you, Joe? It's hard to answer that question. I know this is going out on YouTube,
You don't
so
have to.
I don't know how much I should be saying or how I shouldn't be saying. In general, most artists probably don't do the full due diligence that they should, and it doesn't end up being a huge problem. And then sometimes it may. I can't really give you a better answer than that. It would probably best to ask specifically with the venue.
Sure.
It's normally not a huge problem at the Fringe.
And again, it's also like wanting to be safe rather than sorry. You know, it's always getting ahead of it rather than being reactive to it.
Whether that's right or not is a different question.
I'm going to hop in ever so quickly as a reminder. If you are on doing live stream, because some shows will be doing in person and live stream, that feed will get cut immediately if that song is copywritten. So know that going in, if you are doing a live stream, that don't even try to risk it. We've seen it happen many, many years.
It's also, just looking beyond the Fringe, specifically because I know I've worked at the Melbourne Comedy Festival before, and everything needs to be, you need to pay for the rights for all of that. You're not allowed to use any music without paying for the rights. So at different festivals, I'm not sure what it's like. At Edinburgh, it's probably a little looser, I would imagine, but some of them are very strict. So it depends what plans you have, if it's a fringe only show or if it's going beyond the fringe as well.
Yeah, on the fringe point though, we do require that you do all of your music. I am not personally in every venue though, so know that that's where the fringe stands.
I think I'm going to pass it over to Paulina, is it? With your hand raised? Oh, fantastic.
Hi, yeah, Paulina Combo. My show is a solo show called Adopted by Appalachians at Modnani Theater. I'm excited to work with Stagecrafts. So I know not every venue does projection, but I mean, what can you recommend? Nick has already talked about not being too ambitious, but what can we work with?
So I'll jump in here since you're with us at Stagecrafts. So you can definitely reach out to me, Paulina, or to Greg, and we can get specific. But for us, for projections, if you are just needing some photos, like sometimes people want to flash up baby pictures or family reunions, things like that, just make sure that they are in a photo format, not inside a PowerPoint or PDF or anything like that, because we'll have to resave them as photos and label them. And we can work with you there. If it's a video, we'll want to make sure that it's in the proper video format. And again, check with your venue because they'll give you the format that they need for the system they're operating on. But Paulina, if you want to chat separately, you can reach out to Jen, to me, to Greg. We'll get you set up.
Okay, thank you.
Amazing. And then, yeah, just going back to what Aaron was saying about, and this is like from video to sound, whatever files you're bringing in, I think we've been voicing that as well, but just bringing it back again is making sure those are labeled properly so that you're not just like a file that says 137QW, like definitely going in and making sure what everything is, because you don't want to be spending tech time having to play a cue or click on a video and see like, what is this again? It really eats time. It eats a lot of time, and it'll save you a lot in the end. Like labeling saves so much time, just in life in general, but it's always helpful. I wanted to touch base on and I'll actually, I've seen this question being asked in the chat, and Jen is doing a phenomenal job helping out. But we're talking about a blank script, and we talked about it previously. Let's just reiterate, what does it mean when we're talking about a blank script? Anyone can take it. Go for it.
For us at Stagecrafts, that means we just want the words that are printed on the page as part of your script. So, and again, this is venue specific, stage manager specific. Like Nick said, he's good with some stuff written on the left side, and yeah. But for us, we really just don't want any of that in there, because we're going to write in the cues. And I think it was Nick that said, what you think is a cue is probably not going to eventually match up with what our cue numbers are. So, so that's what we mean at Stagecrafts by blank script. We don't want any handwriting in those scripts when you give them to us.
Yeah, if you think about when you buy a script and you open the script book and it says the doorbell rings, that's okay because that's printed on the script. But hand notations are harder and we don't want a copy of your script that has all of your notes, because that's hard for us to see through, and we won't be able to get your cue right if we're having to wait. Is that what that says? So pencil on the left, in some venues, pencil is always safer, and some places nothing. So when in doubt, a blank script means no handwriting. If it is printed on the page, that's okay, but just like you would buy it at a store.
Brilliant. And then, oh, I see. We've got a question on QuickTime files. So different videos are exported in different ways. I believe for Stagecrafts, and Aaron, you could speak a little bit more about this, or Jen, it's in the chat as well. That's just the preferred method, right? Of how to export those. And Nick, feel free to take both of you. I mean, we're all here.
Yeah. I imagine I know what Jen means when she says QuickTime files. It's more about what QLab is well at handling. And it's not about the actual file format, it's about the codec that's used to encode the video. Now we're getting pretty technical, but
Gotcha.
generally, if you open a video file in QuickTime Player and then export it from there, it gives you in file, it gives you an option to export in certain resolutions, then it will generally work pretty well in QLab. Sometimes it doesn't, and then we have to figure it out. But I think that's why Jen is saying .move files, because they all come from QuickTime. That's when you're using QLab. We haven't spoken a huge amount about QLab, but pretty much every venue is going to be using QLab if they have someone that you're paying to do their tech.
Brilliant, brilliant. And then Aaron, like kind of the similar vein what we're talking about, just to confirm, like just to throw it back to stagecrafts.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a .move file. That's what you want for videos. We're really talking videos, movies. If you're playing a commercial, something like that, it's going to be in that .move format. If you're talking static photo, just like I'm flashing up my baby picture, you want that in a picture file, so PNG.
Brilliant, brilliant. I believe we might have a question in the YouTube live, so I'm going to throw it to Lois.
Thank you, Roddy. We do. Matt Adkins is asking for producers doing live stream and in-person shows. Are producers allowed to do their own live stream, or do they need to use a venue-approved live streamer? I'll answer from the Fringe perspective and then hand it over to panelists to elaborate. But it doesn't matter on the Fringe side, but you do need to make sure it is okay with your venue. Some venues might require you to use their system. So just make sure, like we think we've said it 15 times now, if it was a drinking game, it'd be dangerous, but ask your venue first and then go from there. And then, I'll let panelists take it away.
I'm going to toss it to Jen for stagecrafts.
Hey there, I am. Yeah, so I know that Matt, I know that you're at the Madnani. I think that we'd have to talk with Greg. I would say email me, we'll figure it out. Let's talk with Greg, just because I know that we need to do a special cable and hardwire it, which we have, and we can do no problem. And if you're bringing in someone else, we would just have to set that up with them, which we probably can, but you would want us to know ahead of time and coordinate that with Greg, or just use our equipment. So send me an email and we'll figure it out, is my ridiculous answer, but
I think that's the right answer.
Yeah.
Just depending on who the person in charge of the venue is. So
and
stagecraft people message
and
Jen.
It also really depends. Like, you want to ask your venue too, if you are bringing in someone to do streaming. Like, some venues don't have streaming equipment and you have to bring in your own. You want to ask them things about how fast is their Wi-Fi, or can you go right into hardwire? Like at the Madnani, their Wi-Fi is not very great. So we do hardwire it, so it is great. But we need a special cable for that. So it's just, you just want to talk to your venue about that, because it just gets really technical. So
I will also add, it's technical and sometimes it takes up seats. So also remember that if you're bringing in a live stream and they have a setup, you may need to block off or not sell 2 or 3 seats. We've had instances in our venues where camera people have shown up and we've been like, we're oversold. Sorry, there's no room for you. So
it not only takes up seats, it takes up a huge amount of time. And if you are just thinking, oh, I'm just going to bring a camera and we'll set it up and we'll live stream it. I had an artist at the Zephyr last year do that, and they brought a laptop, and it's like, they didn't plan anything. It wasn't tech. They just showed up for their show and thought it was going to work, and it didn't work. And then that artist got very stressed out. And then if you are planning on doing a live stream, it has to be factored into the amount of time you have during your tech, or you need to book additional time in your theater, because you can't just rock up and assume it's all going to work how you think it's going to. Like, it needs to be a whole other element added to the tech of your show if you want to do a live stream,
especially if you're bringing in your own live streamer, because they might have a different setup than the venue setup, Or if the venue doesn't have their own setup, then you do need to coordinate that with them. In our venues, if you're using our own equipment, we're going to make sure that it's something that is just set up during your 15 load in, so you won't have to worry about extra time. But if you're bringing someone else, or if you're in a different venue than us, just check.
Yeah, at the Zephyr, we don't have a live stream system. We have a hardwire cable, and you do it yourself, which is why I say you got to factor it in. Depends on the venue. I think the Broadwater has invested in a good live stream setup, so they have it all set up. But there's also people that need to run it, and they need to know where to put the cameras.
I'll also add on a similar note, if you're bringing in a videographer just to shoot the show for archives to share with grandma and grandpa, mom and dad, whoever it is, same thing. Like, they're going to take up some space in the house. They're going to have to set up. That has to be done in their 15-minute load in and the 15-minute load out. Let your stage manager know that someone new is coming, because at least in our venues, we get very protective. If I don't know you, you're not getting into that theater till we open the house. So if your videographer shows up and is like, no, I need to get in, if I don't know you're coming, you're not getting in till I talk to the director. So make sure your stage manager knows that too. But it's the seating. They take up space. So remember that.
And if you are looking for a videographer, check out the Hollywood Fringe participant packet, hollywoodfringe.org/participant. The fun thing, or participants, sorry, plural. The fun thing about all of those photographers that are offering discounts is they all actively do Fringe. So they are prepared. It's not asking somebody who's completely unaware of those quick load in and load outs and how the Fringe operates. These are people who have done, like, shot hundreds of shows, but also have been in shows themselves. So they're very accustomed and are going to be shocked when you say, how fast can you set up? Is this going to be doable? And then I'm going to add one more tiny thing for the live stream aspect of things. You have to talk to your venue because they still schedule your live streams. So I just want that little tidbit for those shows that are doing live streams. Those are separate performances. So your venue is going to need to know you're doing them, even if you were setting it up yourself, because that is how you get a performance for it. And all right, I'm out now. Thanks so.
And no, that's fantastic. I mean, all of the good things to know ahead of time. But again, it's also, like we've been voicing it, it's the theme of the night, communication. I would like to throw, because I think we've had some people come in as well. We're currently in a Q&A section for our panelists here. Keeping aware of the time, we'll be closing it out, rounding it out here. But wanted to check in if there's any more questions we have either on the YouTube that Lois is kind of bringing us into, or here in the Zoom room. Just want to throw that out there. And then, if that isn't the case, I've got some handy dandy reminders that I said at the top, but we've had new people come in. I'm going to voice those again. And also feel free to hop in here, Lois and all of our panelists here, because thank you all so much for taking the time, donating your time to help us, to help the artists, to better educate ourselves on tech and what to know going in. And again, if you missed it, if you're just coming in late, it's all going up to YouTube. It'll be there to access at a later date. It's not going away. So yes, I would like to just reiterate that on top of this web, or on this panel that we've had, we have in April, March 15th, from 7 to 8, we've got the ticketing, ads, and guide proofs that are going to be on Zoom and streamed. Then Saturday, April 27th, from 3 to 5, we've got a web workshop number 7 on festival expectations. That's going to be at the Zephyr, which I believe, Nick, you're there right now, right? Oh, you're not? Oh, my apologies. We're working around. No, my bad. I shouldn't have assumed. My bad. But it will be at the Zephyr, and it's going to be streamed as well. So that's good to know. Also, upcoming deadlines, as many of the artists are receiving newsletters that I'm giving out updates. I realized the newsletters are getting a little long. Don't worry, we'll be crossing off things off our list, and we'll be uploading new things. So I just want to reiterate that the printed guide, the deadline to register for the printed guide is April 15th. That's coming up real soon. Lois, do you want to mention anything about that? Not to put you on the spot or anything, but if we want to briefly talk about that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it is the first big deadline of this Fringe season. So we've been talking a lot about guide proofs. We are going to send out more information to make sure you don't miss those deadlines or the pieces of those deadlines. So deep breath, The deadlines are coming, but we promise we are going to annoy you with emails so that you don't miss an important bit of it. So anyone watching, yeah, please know the deadlines are coming, but we're going to walk you through it if you've registered. So that's the really big key. If you haven't registered, the sooner you do, the sooner you get those annoying emails from us. But I promise they're there to make sure you don't just miss entire pockets of the Fringe experience. So make sure you register as soon as possible to start getting that info.
Absolutely wonderful. And just as we've been talking about the night, communicating with your venue, if you've got the questions that are venue related or about your show, I just want to voice out again that you can contact the Fringe support email at support.hollywoodfringe.org. They got that right, Lois? So it's I'm still getting the rhythm of that, but okay, that's the right email. Just making sure. It's posted on the website. It's not a robot that's responding to those. I'm the one getting those questions, discovering what you need, because sometimes they're questions that we haven't come across. And it's like, I will get to you. Let's figure this out. Let's figure it out together. Or sometimes it's like, oh, I gotcha. We've had a couple other artists ask similar questions, and it's always good to just help out in that way. Lois has dropped the email in the chat. Amazing. Yes, support@hollywoodfringe.org.
But with support spelled correctly. My apologies. I typed too fast, y'all.
Oh, it happens. It happens. And then yeah, I just want to again reiterate, like, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Aaron, Nick, Tegan, Jen, Lois. Thank you for our artists for coming in and hanging out this Thursday night. And oh yes, yeah, go for
I
it.
have one last thing. I just want to. The tech element of your show does not have to be scary. Please don't be scared by it. We are here to help you. You just need to communicate with us. Don't bug us, but like communicate with us and tell us what your show is and what you need and what you think, and we will try to make it happen for you. That is the most important thing. Don't be off-put by the technical elements. We are here to help you. We are here to make your show better. No one wants your show to be better more than us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a wonderful note, and I think if we've helped begin that conversation to like demystify tech or yeah, remove that fear that can sometimes just be inherent with any new experience, as sometimes artists are producing work for the first time. I'm glad we're able to help and do that. And again, it's don't, just as much as we're not fearing tech, we're also not fearing the opportunities to ask about tech. But yeah, I think I'm checking my notes that I wrote here. I think we're good. Lois, what do you think?
Absolutely. I'm taking your lead, Roddy. Absolutely.
Okay. Then in which case, thank you all for coming. As we talked about how we're starting the thing, and I must have blanked out on how to end this. But in which case, thank you all for joining. I will just click end meeting. Lois, is that what's happening?